Welcome to today's programme where we're discussing famous partnerships. Bruno, who would you like to mention first?
Well, I love their product and I respect their values. So I would like to talk about Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield.
And we know them better as...
Ben and Jerry, the world's best ice cream makers.
Could you tell us a little about their early days?
Of course. They actually met in a gym class at the age of 12. They were friends at school, but then went on to different colleges. They met up again in the late 70s and decided to go into business together. At first, they thought of the bagel business, but the equipment for making bagels is very expensive, so instead they decided on ice cream.
If they had started a bagel business, they mightn't have been so successful.
Possibly, but we'll never know.
What did they know about ice cream?
Ben had worked as an ice cream seller before going to college, but they both decided to take a correspondence course in ice cream making at Penn University. It cost $5 and was a great investment.
And were they immediately successful?
Pretty much. They chose a college town, which meant there were a lot of potential customers. There was no ice cream shop, so there was no competition, and they made different ice creams every day depending on what was available.
What was different about their ice cream?
Because Ben had a rare condition, which means he has very limited taste and smell, he put big chunks in the ice cream, of cookie and fruit and so on. This made the taste unique.
So it would have been a completely different story if he hadn't had this condition.
Exactly.
And are they still involved in the business?
They sold it to Unilever in 2000, but 7.5% of profits goes to the Ben & Jerry Foundation, which donates money to good causes.
An interesting pair. What about you, Charlotte?
How about Paul McCartney and John Lennon? Together they wrote more #1 songs than any other songwriters. They were also part of the greatest pop group ever, the Beatles. They met in 1957. Paul heard John playing with his band, the Quarrymen, at a church festival in Liverpool. A friend called Ivan introduced Paul to John, and John invited Paul to join the band.
So if Paul hadn't gone to the event, he wouldn't have met John?
That's right.
Who was the next to join?
George Harrison. Paul knew him and wanted him to join as lead guitarist, but John thought he was too young. Paul arranged for George to play guitar on a bus, and John heard him and thought he was so good he invited him to join the group.
So if George hadn't got that bus, John would never have heard him play. Amazing.
I know. They then got a new manager, Brian Epstein, who tried to get them a recording contract. After an audition, Decca Records rejected the band with the comment, "Guitar groups are on the way out, Mr. Epstein."
Decca should have signed the Beatles when it had the chance.
Absolutely. Instead, the Beatles signed to EMI and made their first record. Unfortunately, the producer, George Martin, was not happy with the drummer, Pete Best, so they had to find a new drummer, and that was Ringo Starr. If Pete Best had been a better drummer, he could have become a superstar. The rest is history.